Peace, this is King Noble Black Supremacy. With this particular video, I want to talk about what I'm calling the KNBS awakening, the King Noble Black Supremacy awakening. A lot of people have said that they've learned so much from KNBS, King Noble Black Supremacy. They've learned so much. They've learned a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and their life have even improved dramatically in many different ways. But just because you've learned a little and your life has improved, that doesn't mean that you have a KNBS awakening, that you have completely awakened. That doesn't mean that you have ascended beyond the conscious programming of the matrix. It doesn't mean you had a complete radical transformation of your mind, that you have really stepped into unlimited possibility, unlimited probability. Doesn't mean that you have tapped into unexhaustible creativity. Don't mean that you've turned all the narratives and the scripts off of white supremacy. Doesn't mean that you have embraced the totality of the consciousness of King Noble Black Supremacy, that you have really stepped into that. And unfortunately, many haven't. They take a little here, a little there, and then they make comparisons to the ideologies and the philosophies and the awakening of King Noble and compare it to other ideologies and try to sift through and mix and match and take what they want and leave the rest. It doesn't work like that. Of course you can do that, but you're not going to have the complete, full KNBS awakening. You're not going to have that total paradigm shift where you step into a new black reality. You will not be enlightened. Being knowledgeable, being informed, and even being conscious is not totally enlightened. Because enlightened deals with the heart. It deals with the compassion, and it deals with the totality of one's being. Information resides in your head. Consciousness is just your awareness of things. But a complete transformation of the seer, of the self, which is really death to the old you. It's literally what we used to call killing your goddamn self. You will literally, the old you would have to die in order for you to make it into the KNBS awakening. You cannot take that old self with you. You cannot take that old paradigm, those old thoughts, those old ideas, those old constructs. You can't bring them with you. And proof that you have not had a KNBS awakening is that you still are holding on to a lot of those other ideas and thoughts and frameworks and constructs. That's proof. And you cannot bring them with you into the new paradigm, into the kingdom of God, into the new reality. You can't bring those thoughts. And you can't even bring the thinker who had those thoughts, who thought in that pattern. That entity has to die and be transformed into a new being. And that's when you come into KNBS awakening. When you come into KNBS awakening, you hate the old world. You hate everything about it. You see all of the illusions. You see all of the pettiness. You see all of the bullshit of the old world. So you hate that world. You hate all of it. You feel like a stranger to that world completely when you wake up. So you're not at all trying to find validation from that world. You know, you're not seeking validation. You don't care what people in that world think or how they think, or are you trying to validate what you've come into the awareness of based on what's going on in the world, based on what they're talking about, based on their ideas, based on their perceptions, based on their principles, based on what they got going on. You're no longer trying to align your consciousness and align your mind with that reality because you have become a new being. and you have divorced that world, you have renounced the totality of that world, and you're moving into a whole new reality. And that's the hardest thing to do, because we have become so programmed by that world, and we believe that that has become what is true for us. That has become what is factual for us. So to come into a whole new reality, to let that world die, to let that old framework die, and to let that person who was created by that world, who is generated by your soul's relationship and identification with that world, that entity has to die. That's a lot. That's more than just some information. That's more than just a little knowledge. That's more than being just conscious of some things. That's more than changing your diet. That's way more than just living off the grid. That's way more than that. It's so much more that you have to embrace and be willing to step into if you want that full enlightenment and you want that full awakening. And that really requires you to become a devotee. See, the devotion is somewhat like death of your ego, because your ego is not going to willingly die. It's not going to willingly commit suicide, nor is it big enough or smart enough to wrap itself around infinite knowledge. It can't do that. It can't rationalize or use the way it reasoned in the old world, in the illusionary realm, and then try to apply that to enlightenment and consciousness. It can't do that. It's too small. It has to die, but it's not going to die willingly. So the only way that it can die is through devotion. Devotion kills the ego, because it's not trying to awaken through just questions and trying to get answers, and it's literally putting the ego to the side and giving oneself fully, dissolving oneself to become one and to become an embodiment of the new reality. It is becoming empty, and devotion is guiding one into emptiness, which is at the same time an infinite space where you access your infinite potential and your unexhaustible creativity. But at the same time, it is a space of emptiness. You are being guided into a space of emptiness so that you can be filled with the new reality, with the new consciousness, with the new paradigm of totally the divine reality, of the ancestral reality, of divine consciousness. This part one. I'm going to go in on this some more. Join my website, www.kingnoblepblacksupremacy.com. Donate and don't hate.